start. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. This is actually our first coffee hour for the Panther team. And we do plan on continuing this every quarter or so. Hope everyone's got their coffee in hand, ready for some exciting info here. Well, firstly, very grateful to have all of you guys on the line here. It's just such a crazy time right now. I'm glad you took a little time out to sit with us and chat. The call should take about 35, 45 minutes or so. Very informal conversation, folks. As you know, I think you know most of our product support team here on the line, and feel free to just shoot questions out. We'll have different presenters on different topics. So I would say after every presenter, feel free to ask them questions, or just any other questions that you may have on your mind. So let's go on to my next slide, and let's see what will be discussed today. All right, the agenda. So we'll be talking about our new Windows theme support. Glenn Silverberg, our senior developer, he will be coming up and talking to you about this modern look and feel that he's added to some of our Panther fields. Really good stuff here, and Glenn will be able to show you the insides and outsides of it. Next, we'll have Kartikeya join us, and he has been experimenting with how Panther and Panther Web handles large images. And he'll have a fabulous demo to share with us. And after that, we will move on to Subhan. Subhan's going to talk about our Panther Web migration utility. Yes, we have a utility, if some of you guys were not aware of it. And those folks thinking about moving to the web, there you go. A great starting point with our utility. He will give you a quick demo on our utility. And then Malika is going to come up and showcase a very cool looking web application built with Panther technology. So she'll showcase you what your Gem or Panther app could look like when you take it to the web world, and you'll definitely be impressed. And we've got time for questions and answers. But like I said, I would say stop each presenter, after they've presented, to ask your share questions, or wait till the end. All right. So we will bring up Glenn Silverberg. Glenn, I'm making you all go ahead and be the presenter, and let's show everyone what you've got.
Hello, everybody. You saw on the screen Windows theme support. That's the topic we're going to talk about. I've been a long-time developer of Jam and Panther. I did some of the original work on the user interface components back in the 1990s. And I'm really excited to talk about this new look to Panther. It's some of the most significant changes we've made, really, in probably at least 20 years. The last thing I remember that we did significantly, I had worked on frame set support around the year 2000. So Windows defines themes as highlighted here. A theme is a combination of desktop background pictures, window colors, and sounds. From Panther's perspective, I wanted to talk to you about really the Windows controls. And by controls, I mean what Panther calls widgets. Windows calls them controls. And it's really how those controls are painted on your screen, and how they behave and how they look. On the left side of my screen, you can see how Panther looks on my Windows 10 machine now, with some changes that I've made. There's a couple of items. This is the screen editor, and you can see in the screen editor even you've got these buttons look different than on the old style, which is on the right. And you can also see on this screen, you can see the drop down where you select from the library table of contents, mouse over it, it highlights, you can make a selection. The old style was more 3D looking. Everything was 3D back in the old days. I'll go into test mode on these screens so you can see. I have a screen just to show you. Actually, that wasn't the one I was going to show you. Go back into the editor. That was the one. Okay. So in test mode, you can see that these buttons highlight when you mouse over them. Again, this is a combo box, and it turns blue when you highlight it. You can drop down and make a selection. The old one was the square look. Just to give you an idea of how this is done, basically what I'm talking about when I refer to the themes are the way in which Microsoft draws these controls is through a library called the ComControl 3D.dll. I think I can show you a little bit about the common controls. So our controls are mostly what Windows calls common controls. And there's a DLL that paints them, and it's always been this DLL. But back in around here, when they had version 5.52 perhaps for Windows Vista, they started using another DLL called UXtheme.dll, which is the theme DLL. So when we talk about themes, we're really talking about a combination for the widgets anyway, or the controls, combination of the common controls DLL and the theme DLL. And these DLLs work together to draw paint the things on the screen. So what we found was that nothing really changed in how Panther looked for quite a while, because it was still using version 5.82 of the Common Control DLL. Well, we found that we can use version 6 of the Common Control DLL or later, and that DLL gives you some of the look and feel of some of these widgets, like this one. It gives you that for free. As long as we're letting Windows paint these controls, that's how they're going to look different. But in Panther, many of our widgets look old, because even with this change, some things look a little old because we're painting them ourselves. Now, I've done some work to enhance that. So even buttons, where we wanted to have color support on buttons, you can't get this color support if you just let. I have buttons here on my screen. This screen actually has a lot of controls on it. You can't get these colors on buttons if you just let Windows paint them. So I've added some functionality, some code to paint the buttons ourselves correctly for a modern look. And it's the old style look that we were painting ourselves is still, you'll still see a little bit of that in the headers and the grid. Toggle buttons, I couldn't really do much about that yet, maybe not at all. So toggle buttons will still have this 3D look. And the reason it's hard to make a flat button into a toggle button. So that's just how, just the nature of the thing. So I think I may have gone over my time, but Amrit, if you'll just indulge me for another minute or two,
Yes.
I just wanted to show you an image of, this is an image I found online of what the control panel for Windows 3.1 looked like. If you wanted to set, you didn't have themes back in Windows 3.1, you had color schemes, and you could change your color scheme with this control panel item. If I go to the control panel today, fact, I'm going to show you the same thing, which I already have open here for, well, let me show you personalization. So when you you can change your theme in Windows using the type personalization in the search bar. You'll see the themes choice, and you can change your theme in here. One of the things that you can change for your theme is what's called high contrast settings. High contrast settings is the only way you can actually change the colors of the individual widgets. And if you use high contrast settings, you'll get that old style look, a little bit of it anyway. This high contrast dialog, which lets you change, it's grayed out because I don't have high contrast settings, but this is essentially equivalent to what I just showed you for Windows 3.1. So your ability to make those changes is really built into the Common Control DLL. And the other items that you can change in a theme are really part of the theme DLL, which, like I said, came about in Windows Vista. So, does anybody have any questions regarding this new look to Panther for Windows? Okay, if nobody has any questions, we'll move on to Kartikeya. Kartikeya is our social media guy, and he's going to show you a little bit about some cool things we've done with images in Panther and Panther Web. Okay, Kartikeya, you can take control.
Thanks, Glenn.
You're welcome.
I hope my screen is visible to you all now.
Yes, it is, Kartik.
Thanks, Amrit. So I'm Kartikeya Chawla. I have been with the team for around 3 years now. I have been working for the social media as well. Alongside, I have been developing and integrating and modernizing Panther in this time. And today I'll be showcasing you our latest enhancement into the product, which is how to handle blob support with SQL Server. And as you know that Panther 5 series does not have blob support for images or large objects except for Infomix. Uh, we have a workaround for the same, and I'll be showcasing you that today. Let me walk you through the demo now. Showcase you that my image table is empty. None of the columns have any data. Now you see that a profile card has been opened up, and all it is asking for me is to browse. So all this page is lagging is an image. So I'll browse. I'll select this image, that is Kartikeya, and you see that an image has popped up. So as soon as I click save, this image will start saving into SQL Server, and in some moments you see that the image has been retrieved from SQL Server itself. SQL Server, I'll execute my command of selection, and very soon you'll be able to see that the data that has been generated using my image in base 64 string. So what we do is we are converting the image into base 64 string, and using that to save into. Till then, I'll showcase my code which I have used to generate this. I'll showcase you JPL first of all. This JPL is working as the server side, which I am using to, which will not be showcased to the open side on the web, that no one can see. Like if you click on view page source, you'll be able to see the code, but here you will not be able to revealing. Here you will not be able to. Here you will not be revealing the code. You see, image underscore table, image occurrence, and image underscore name. These are the three columns. and the selection query. After this, in my JS, you see my photo is the element that I'm having in my HTML, and this is the loop that I am using to get all the data in single variable, that is the base64 string, and then the base64 string I attach in the image variable that I have in my HTML. Received it or not? Yeah. You see that the image, the base64 data has been generated, and you can see it over here. I show that to you in my client server screen. I'll run that. I'll click browse. I'll select this icono.png. I'll click save. In a moment, you will be able to see that the image has been converted. We have a Panther function for the conversion, and the complete string that would be generated would be showcase will be available for you in this MLT. That is the multi-line text widget, or in web you say this to be the text area. You see that the data has been generated over here, and as soon as I click select image, this select image has been generated over here in a dynamic label. The data is absolutely the same. All it is required is, while you are converting the image into base64, the multi-line text widget should be word wrapped, and this dynamic label that I'm having over here, it just has the property of array being 1, and num occurrences are unlimited, and yes, num occurrences are unlimited. uh, yeah. Any questions now? So I'll turn it over to Subhan now.
So hello one and all. So now I'll be showcasing our latest Panther web migration utility. So before getting into our demo, let me just explain first of all why migration utility. So just consider you have a client application which has a couple of screens and a bunch of widgets on each screen. So that would be an easy part just to migrate it to web. I mean, you just need to have the widgets names into your hand and just have HTML templates attached to your screens. But whereas just consider if you have a large application which has 100 plus screens, and for each screen you have 100 plus widgets and a couple of grids as well on the screens, that would be a very hard part to go through each and every widget's name, write it into your HTML and emit it. So this is where our migration utility enters. So this makes the work easier. So our migration utility creates HTML, JavaScript files, and a TXT file which has all the bunch of widgets for you, and this makes work easier to migrate to Panther web. So this is the major essential part where we get our migration utility into picture. So now let me just show you what are the screens which I have migrated. So these are the two screens which I have migrated, and in a bit I'll be showcasing you the code. So as you can see on the left hand side, I have the jam screen, I mean the old legacy screens which we have, and on the right hand side we have the modern Panther screens. If you observe, the right hand side screen has a grid on it. So just to showcase the difference, that we have a grid screen as well as a screen which just have a bunch of widgets on it. So now before getting into that the code, so I need to mention one point here. So don't need to worry about your JPL or your SQL queries which are having in the background of your screen. All you need to just do is you just have all the code of your screen into a file with a dot extension of JPL, and just public or include your JPL file. So you don't need to worry about your logic or your functionality of your screen. It will be staying the same. So now let me just show you the files. So this is the screen which has the grid in it. So these are the bunch of files which gets generated as soon as you run the migration utility. So first, let me just get into HTML. So as you can see, this is the minimal HTML which you can start off with, and this might be your starting point for your Panther screen. And if you keenly observe, there are some tags which are form tags which are related to Panther, and a table tag which showcases the grid. So why a table tag here? Because you are converting your grids to data tables. Data tables are nothing but which enhances your grid to have multiple operations like sortings, and you can like search for the field or multiple operations that can be performed, and as well as it has a good look and feel for your grid. And talking about these tags, so you need to consider this form output is something like which outputs each and every widget on your screen. So if you don't want this form output to be to be present here, and you just need to emit particular widgets such as some single line text fields and some push buttons, then you need to just go to our file which is emit. So what this emit file does is it lists out all the widgets that are on your screen. So as you can notice, at the left you can see text which are single line text fields, push buttons, and you can also see output only, which is a dynamic label, static label. So what this emit text does is you can look through all the widgets and you can just filter out which widgets are to be showed. I mean, you don't need to bother about showcasing all the widgets. You can just filter out and showcase what you need to show, and that's it. So this makes work easier. Now coming to JavaScript. So this is the JavaScript file which is generated by your utility, and you can see there is a build grid function which actually creates a data table. So considering all these variables and declarations and all, so what's happening here is your grid is being converted to a data table, and you are doing nothing here. You are just migrating your screen which has a grid, and our utility, it converts the grid to a data table considering all the columns. So in one hand you just migrate and you get this code ready available for you for a data table. So this makes the work easier for creating a data table, or else you would have gone through all the columns and you have written it manually. So here you can make a difference between your utility. Yeah, so this is about our HTML and JS. Keeping in consideration, there are some things which you need to still do manually, like field validation functions and on-click of grids. So you might have having the grids which has on-click functions on the columns, rows. So you don't need to worry about those things. We do have solutions for them, which we'll be making them work in JavaScript. So this is all about our migration utility, and you can get the source code in our GitHub link that is available. So let me just point you to the GitHub link. So this is the GitHub link where you can just download the source code. We have clear instructions and each and every step how you run your utility and all. And talking about running the utility, so there are two ways which you run utility, either to command line or else you go to the source code. So where do we get the source code? There are two sources which are available. One is you download from here, and if you have a product installed on your machine which you got from us, you just go to your directory, that is Panther, sample, and migration. So you'll be having all the necessary files that are essential for your utility to run. So this is all about our migration utility. So I think we'll go to questions. Any questions?
Subhan, this is Debbie. Question for you. You mentioned JavaScript. So is that being generated for all of the field validations that are on that screen?
No, Debbie. As I said, as I mentioned, the manual thing. So that is a manual thing which you need to do. So yes, we can make them work in the utility as well, but we are leaving it to the customer. That he knows like which field is having a validation function, because all fields might not be having validation. So making it generic is a bit thinkable part. So what we are doing is we are providing different solutions which will be having on GitHub. So how to make a field validation thing work in a JavaScript. So we just need a couple of lines of code and you make it work. So we are making that way.
Okay, so you're saying that the migration utility doesn't handle the JavaScript. You just basically create your JavaScript for the field validations that you need.
Yes,
And
only
it's
for field validation
just a couple
function.
lines of code. That's just one of the manual
Yes, yes,
things. Okay, got it. All right.
yes, yes.
If I could just interject, you also have to remember that this is Glenn. That Panther does generate some validation JavaScript functions, and you could probably emit the Panther generated JavaScript as well and make use of it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question too. If I missed this, I apologize. But when we're looking at the two screens that you showed, assuming there's some code, whether it's JPL or C, in the migration process, what happens to that code?
I mean, as soon as you run the utility, the only thing our utility considers is the widgets that are present on the front view. So at the back end, the JPL will be staying the same. So that is the thing what the customer needs to do, or else, I mean, a guy needs to do. You just need to have all the code that is behind your screen and put it into a JPL file and point it. So your code will not be disturbed. I mean, anyways, migration utility will not be talking to the code that is present behind.
Yeah, so there's little to no work involved on the code side. This is all on the UI side.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hello. Is there any chance of you could show the data table on the screen, how it looks? You know, the grid on the web?
Yes, yes, yeah. So, I mean, talking about that, let me just shift to our GitHub link itself. So we do have a few repositories that are available. Let's get to our Bootstrap data table. So this is a link which we have created, and where we have our Bootstrap data table. So as you can see, this is a Panther screen which is converted to a Bootstrap data table, and this is the look what exactly it will be. And this might be a minimal look, but you can make it more enhanceable, like coloring and all. It depends on you. But talking majorly about the operations, the sorting functions and the searchings, this come by default. So yeah, this is the look and feel of the data table.
Yeah, I believe you'll see that also in Malika's demo as well. You'll see it.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And I have another quick question, and hopefully this is not too much into the too deep into the details. But do you know if when a grid is converted to, you know, presented in this format, all the individual fields, do they continue to be, is it possible to still reference them I guess that the usual way? Like the first one would be I_1_ the name of the widget, and so on?
Yes, yes, exactly. I mean, our utility doesn't change the reference or else the alignment of it. I mean, how exactly it looks in client application, and the reference is like I_1_ some column name. It will be the same, and the alignment doesn't change. It references exactly.
Yeah, they are hidden in the implementation he has. They're hidden fields which you can still reference, and so the data is pulled out of the hidden fields into JSON and then put into the data table. So you could still reference the hidden field and send it back. And I think Malika may show that. I'm not sure, but we've been working on playing around with that. Subhan has actually.
Yeah. I guess just to where I'm coming from, I'm thinking about the the process of converting an existing grid that is already working on the web, for which some JavaScript has already been written to validate fields and whatnot. What would be involved to turn it into a data table? And I guess that they're yes.
Yeah. I mean, talking about grid. You just said, I mean, it is having a web application, so that would definitely be a like emit, right? I mean, you are emitting your grid, so you are not involving any other stuff over there. You are emitting a grid. Yeah. So I mean, you just go to your client screen and convert it. And talking about the functions and the validation things, or else grid on links, if at all I'm not going wrong. So I mean, yeah, we do need to do some manual work. We need to see like which column is to be clicked, or else which validation functions is to be given. So we do write some manual code over there for the JavaScript. And we are also actually thinking of if at all our utility does everything for us for handling as well as the validation functions. But yes, as of now, we do some manual work for the validations.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm supposing that if you have you probably could run the screen through the migration utility and then pull out what you need from the result and merge it back into your already existing, web solution. I think that might work.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. So any more questions from anyone? Okay. So now let me just hand over to Molika. She'll be showcasing her latest web application, which she has worked on. So Molika.
Hope you all see my screen. So I will be demonstrating our latest Panther web application called GetBricks. And GetBricks is an online database that lists the latest films as well as the cast in that film. And I'm using Panther, the latest version of Panther Web, that is 5.52, and Microsoft SQL database server in the backend. For the UI part, I'm using Bootstrap framework, and I have applied cascading style sheets to create the UI. And this application will be online and will be available to the public for a couple of weeks. So feel free to access it and view the page source for this application. So let me jump on to the application and let me show it on the browser. Yes. So this is my application and the sign-in screen for this application. So as I mentioned, I'm using Bootstrap navigation classes along with the custom CSS classes to create this header and footer here and this sign-in form here. So basically this is a Panther screen where I have attached a HTML template on it and using some CSS classes and Bootstrap classes to complete this UI. So let me first sign in here. Sign in. Just give me a second. Sign in again.
Shall we explain that one, the cache issue, Malika? Because I know we've all seen this.
Yeah. So that happens when the server cache expires, which is saved in the form of web IDs. So if we have kept the application sign in for a long time, we left it. So if the server cache expires, which is the timeout time hours are set in the ini file, if it expires, so you get that message that is your cache is no longer available, and you can just refresh your screen, I mean your application, to get the screen. So let me sign in. Okay, I'm sorry, I think I typed in the wrong password. So again, this pop-up is equivalent to the SM message box in the Panther client application. So here I'm making use of jQuery dialog boxes to create this pop-up. Okay, so when I click on sign in, so it will validate my username and password against my Microsoft SQL database. So when I sign in, so it shows that I'm successfully signed in. And this is my dashboard screen here. As I told, I'm using Bootstrap navigation classes to create this sidebar and this top bar, and I can toggle between them like this. And these options in the sidebar are used to navigate from screen to screen. So for that, I'm using I'm changing the HTML templates for this Panther screen, which is a dashboard screen, dynamically in the JPL, so that I can access other screens. So here, these images are coming from my file system, and this chart here shows the IMDb rating for the movies with their names. And I'm loading this chart in an iframe here, and the data is coming from my database. So this is again a jQuery plugin to create this chart. And here on the top, you see the colorful buttons. So these are all Panther buttons with the CSS classes on it, applied on it. And the functionality of these buttons is like when I click on some button, any of these buttons, it will list all the movies based on that genre. And this comment section here, so the data is coming from my database again. You can see the name of the comment, who is giving the comment, and the name of the movie and the comment on that movie. So now let's see the next screen, which is actor screen. So in the screen, you can search for the actor and their movies they were cast in. So this is again our Panther screen, which is being loaded in an iframe here. And this grid which you see is a Panther grid widget, which has been converted into a data table, which Subhan just talked about. So I'm using the same technique to create this data table here. So you can see that I have a search option. I can navigate through pages here, and I can group the rows from here. And let me search for a customer. And so here, if I click on the customer, if I select him, I can view the list of movies that he was cast in. So this is the movies list screen, and I can access the same screen from the movies tab here, which will again list all the movies. So here I have a view cast option to check the other actors in that movie, so and their roles and the description for that actor. So this is the border pop-up here I'm using. I can scroll up and down, and the same thing, the search option is available there. So this is again a bootstrap data table and Panther grid in the screen, the combination of JavaScript and Panther grid. So now let's jump on to the other screen, which is accounts. So there I have two options. I can view the accounts and update the accounts. So let's me first talk about the view functionality here. So here I have two iframes, and each iframe contains a Panther screen here, so that I can logically separate both the screens and the data in that screen. So this is like a master detail screen in the Panther client version. So here, if I select any of each of the member, so these are the list of members of this Getflix application. If I select any of the member, it will populate the details on the right side, which is on another iframe. And I can toggle between them. I mean, I can go through them using my keyboard, the up arrow, down arrow key, and I can click on enter to see the details. So I can do the same thing using the keyboards too. Now let's talk about the order, update accounts screen. So in order to update the accounts, I'll go to the update screen. So here I can sort them by expiration year, the credit card expiration year. And here I have the edit icon. So when I click on this edit icon, it will open up a pop-up. So let's change the expiration here. I converted it to, I changed this to 24. So let's save. So when I save this, again, this data will be saved in the in my database. So I'm saving it, and it says my updates are saved. So now let's check. So yes, this is updated. Yes. So this is all about my application. So these are all Panther screens with the HTML template attached to it, and I'm using iframes to create this dashboard screen. Yes. If anyone has any question, please.
Hi, Draghi here. This is very impressive, and certainly nobody who keeps complaining that the Panther is obsolete tool would not guess that this was made with Panther. Do we have the source of that application somewhere to serve us as the let's say teaching tool for our developers?
Yes, we have it on AWS server, but I think Amrit can explain when it will be available to the public. Like the
Yes,
source. Yeah.
totally. Great presentation, Malika. Hey, Draghi.
Hi.
Yes, we were expecting cheers, hoorays. I mean, looking at this, I know it kind of looks like Netflix, doesn't it? But it is good. But yes, we were hoping that folks out there that needed help, guidance, especially with data tables, making your screens pop out like this.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll want to even, we'll give you the opportunity to download the entire application. Right now, it's actually running on an AWS server. So we'll send you guys the link to it. We can either download it or, whatever makes sense for how you would need to access it. But really impressive. And I think it took Malika a couple of months, I think. Would you say a couple of months, Malika? Right?
Yes, yeah, couple of months to
put this together.
Yeah.
Great.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Welcome, Draghi.
Thank you.
And Malika did this by herself, in case that this is a month of one person. It's not like a team of people that built this.
Correct. Malika had to go on mute. Everyone's working from home. We've got half our team out in Hyderabad and half the team out in the U.S. So I think prayers just started out at Malika's home area, so she had to go on mute. But any other questions? Anything we can help you on pertaining to what Malika just showed us? All right. Excellent. Well, if there are no questions, any comments, any feedback? Nope. I know a couple of our folks, of our customers kind of joined a little late. Hey, John and Draghi, if you would want to stay on, I would love for you to see Glenn's demo. And Glenn demonstrated something that's, pertaining to a non-web feature. So if I know Draghi, you've still got customers.
Yeah, sure, of course, yes.
Running ProDev, and John, feel free to stay on. Marco, I think you may have missed it also. So Marco, if you want to stay on, feel free to stay on and watch the presentation. But just great having you guys on the call. We really appreciate your business for the past 28 years, actually more than 28 years. Some of you guys have been around longer than that. But thank you very much. Do look out for our next coffee hour. And if there's something specific you'd like us to talk about, we will be more than happy to put that, and discuss it during our next coffee hour. All right. Thank you very much. And those who want to stay on, Glenn, would you mind just kind of a brief Windows.
Okay. So I may start off a little bit differently because I don't know how much time we really have, but this is, I should show you first the same screen on both sides. This is the new look on the left, the old look on the right. And I'll bring up the same screen. I'll go into the editor here. Even in the editor, you can see that, I'll bring up the screens of the editor, you can see that we have different looking buttons, and we have a different looking drop down to select a type of screen. This is a combo box. And I'll go into this screen on both sides so you can see. Again, you've got these flat buttons. The flatness, the buttons are drawn by the Windows Common Control DLL, Common Control 3D32.dll. The old buttons were these squarish. Oh, what did I just do? Don't know how that happened. Go back into the editor. I guess that button closed the screen.
Yeah.
So I had previously talked a little bit about Windows themes and what they are. I don't know if we want to go back and talk about that again, but I actually wanted to show you something that I left out of the last demo, which is, if you take a look at, this is the Windows Spy, right? I'll refresh it. Actually, let me bring up Let me bring up the properties window, the control panel. Control panel. So if you look at the control panel, I'm just going to click on a random, I'm clicking on mouse. It's not exactly random because I know what this one shows. But if you look at the controls this is built into Windows 10. I was showing you all this on Windows 10. If you look at the controls that are built into Windows 10, they're the same controls that I was just showing you. There's your slider, I guess the track bar in Windows terminology. I can even show you that in the spy tool, how do you refresh this? So I'm going to refresh it. I don't know if you've used the spy. It comes with the Visual Studio. If I mouse over this, you can see where it says class over here. It's a list box. If I mouse over a button, it's a button class. You know, if I mouse over an option menu, there really is no such thing as an option menu. They're all variations on the combo box class. If I do the same thing in Panther, whether it's the old Panther or the new Panther, in fact, I'm going to mouse over the Panther list box. It's a list box class. If I mouse over the combo box, oh, that's the edit control part of the combo box, but it's a combo box. So even in Windows 10, you're seeing it's the same controls. I won't bother to do it. It's the same in the older look. These controls didn't go away, even though you have versions of applications in Windows that have a different look, like this. So if you want to change your Windows theme and the personalization choice, this application looks very different. I haven't done this before, but if we look at this with Spy, I'm pretty sure we won't find it doesn't work on this. It's not showing me classes for these things. So there is a new look, and this is probably built with the UWP, Universal Windows, whatever it is, the new interface. But there's still plenty of stuff in Windows 10 that's still using the Windows common controls. Now, the only thing that we've done that is really different here is that we've told Panther to use the latest version of the Windows Common Control DLL. And we've also, I've also done some specialized work I wanted to be on this one, and I'll show you that. I've done some specialized work to paint some of our widgets differently, because we don't let Windows paint or draw all of them. We do some painting ourselves. So in order to get background and foreground colors, I had to do some painting code. I had to write some new painting code to be able to do these background and foreground colors on these buttons. And I just recently did that work. There's still other things that are going to look a little old, like a toggle button. You can't easily do a flat toggle button. How would it look depressed? So I left that as is. But other controls that we don't draw, like the radio button and the checkbox, these are Windows common controls. So is the tab dialog, and I didn't mention this earlier, but the tab dialog now has a white background color, and it doesn't work so well if you put the new controls on top of it, because the background color has changed, and we currently don't have a way we never had a way to change the background color of a tab, because Windows never allowed us to do that if we were letting Windows, paint it, which we were. But now it's white, so that will affect the look and feel of an application that you already have if it has tab dialogues in it. But I think that's mostly all that I talked about in the last demo, although I presented some things in a different order. I did actually talk about how really where themes come from. Windows themes were introduced probably around Vista. Maybe somebody knows more about it than I do. But in the early days of Windows, like Windows 3.1, and I showed a picture here. I found this online. So in the early days of Windows 3.1, you didn't have themes, you had color schemes. And this color schemes dialog, which let you could save these, you could change colors on individual items and save them as a color scheme. Windows doesn't really have that anymore, but it does have in the, do I still have the personalization option open? So among these themes, which by the way, all of the default themes that you get, and I installed some other ones, they don't change the background or foreground colors of things like buttons. They don't change the whether it has a gradient background like you had in Windows 7. You don't have that anymore. It's all flat. It doesn't change the corners of the, whether it's rounded corners or flat or anything else. They don't change that in these themes that are built in. None of them seem to change that. I tried a lot of them. But if you go back and you look at the high contrast settings, I'm selecting it this time. Okay. If you turn this on, I don't know if I should do that. Let's see what happens. Bear with me for a moment. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I'll talk over this while we're waiting. The high contrast settings actually gives, oh, there we go. So this dialog here, or this, not a dialog, but this sort of set of things you can change here, buttons and backgrounds, it's the same thing I showed you in the old Windows 3.1 interface. Isn't that interesting? They've just, and if you go back to Windows 7, you'll still see something that looks like this Windows 3.1 dialog if you wanted to change high contrast settings. Now, if you want to change high contrast settings, they've built this new. No, that was the mouse properties one. They've built this new interface to change it, but it's really doing the same thing. And what I found that happens when you use a high contrast theme is that it doesn't really make use of the theme DLL. It draws things using the common control DLL. I found this in the debugger. So
sorry, Glenn, we almost out of time.
But I thought we were going to run. I didn't know when we would run out, but I figured I could just go on and on and on until we run out, because now we don't have anybody coming after me.
Right. No, and it's really good stuff. It's really good stuff, Glenn. So 552 is what a customer needs to have, correct, in order to apply the patch?
No, well, the way the patch works is if you have any version of Windows after Vista, it will come, I think after Vista, it will come with the Common Control DLL that supports the new look. But of course, in Vista and Windows 7, the new look was different. And you can run when we ship this patch. If you want to use it in Windows 7, you could use it in Windows 7, and you'll see the Windows 7 rounded cornered buttons, and you'll see the gradient background. But you have basically what Microsoft did was, and if you want to look this up, you can. It's explained here. You search for common control versions on the internet, in Google, and you'll get this page, and it explains a little bit about what they did. And what they did was that they decided at some point that if you didn't build your application specifically to tell Microsoft or to tell Windows to use a later version of the Common Control DLL, you would just get version 5.82, which is on every Windows version of Windows has, or recent version of Windows has version 5.82. And they also have the later versions of the Common Control DLL. But if you don't tell Windows to use anything later, it'll still use 5.82. And they do that presumably so that old applications will not suddenly change on people. behind their backs, and maybe they won't get the same look and feel that they were expecting. So it's kind of interesting that we were looking into different ways to modernize the look and feel of Panther. We looked into whether we could redo the UI in totally new technology, but you actually get something fairly modern looking just by telling Windows to use the latest version of the Common Control DLL.
Right. Okay. Any questions for Glenn, folks?
Yes, one quick question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
Well, it was just a detail. So in terms of Panther, when you talk about the push buttons and the ability to to have colors in the push buttons, those properties are already there in Panther, right?
Yes. So what happened was that we would draw our own push buttons completely, and we were drawing them the way they looked back in the 90s. So in order for me to initially get Windows to draw them so that they look more modern, I had to make us not draw the Common Control. And when I did that, I wasn't able to change the colors anymore because I had no control over that. So what I did was I went back after the initial patch that I released. For a customer, you could set it to let Windows draw the common controls, in which case you'd get no background or foreground colors. Or I had a property that you could set, in which case we would draw them, and you'd get back the old 3D look that we were drawing but you'd have background and foreground color support. So in the last few weeks, I've been working on keeping the controls so that we draw them, but I'm now calling the Windows theme APIs to explicitly to draw them, and then I'm drawing color, and then I'm blending it with the colors that you've selected. So that's how I'm doing this. Including the highlighting effect, I added support for that. So this is being drawn by our code now, but I'm actually letting Windows draw it, and then I'm blending our colors over it, in a sense. So so in order to support some of the look of some of the other widgets with colors that you won't necessarily get. So right now the option menu you won't get the background color on the option menu. You will get it on the combo box. For some reason, not the option menu. Haven't figured out why yet. And of course, as I said, you can't change the color of this tab dialog, and that may be troubling. So Panther has a combination of things we painted ourselves, and we painted them to look like Windows 95 probably, and a combination of things we let Windows paint, and it painted them with the Common Control DLL and perhaps the theme DLL as well.
Draghi, you had a question, Draghi?
Yes, thank you. I was worried a bit about those tab widgets, because some of our customers have applications relying on the ridiculous number of tabs. So what do we do in that situation? Simply stay the way it is, I guess.
Well, right now, maybe I should have started out by saying that I'm still working on this stuff. So it's a bit of a work in progress.
Okay.
So I may be able to do something about it. But I'll show you that if I drop that on, I can drop these on this, okay?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. But some of them are no longer going to look like even that, right? You can still see it's got the wrong background color now.
Yeah.
But I can actually change that. So since I can change the background color on that, it's actually a bright white. So I can do some manipulations to sort of make things look okay. Even that as well, I can I believe. Well, maybe not that. Hold on. Try that. Oops, what did I do? I meant to do, okay, basic. Container doesn't actually do what you'd want, unfortunately, and maybe that's a better solution, is because most people are going to leave it as container. But if I made it bright white, it worked. So changing the background to bright white kind of works, but it's not convenient because if you have hundreds of screens, you're not going to want to do that.
Yeah. It's funny that we are actually now returning to that 2D look that Panther actually still has.
Yeah, to me it's ironic. We started out with this 3D look in Windows 3.0 and 3.1, and if you remember, everybody back then drove big boxy cars, so everything was kind of like that. And
Yeah.
and then in like Windows 7 and earlier, maybe even Windows Vista, they started to flatten things out, and I could switch I might be able to switch desktops to show you Windows 7 if you want to see it. But you probably remember you had buttons with rounded edges, and you had on the background not a flat color, you had a gradient color that was darker at the bottom and lighter at the top. And so it was sort of a little bit 3D. Now it's no longer 3D at all, completely flat. And when you have a flat button, you don't know that it's a button unless it lights up when you mouse over it. So they had to add that effect. And I had to make sure that ours would do that too when we draw them ourselves. I have to detect when the mouse is over the button to do something to highlight it. Otherwise, you wouldn't know that some of these things are buttons.
Yeah. Yeah, that drives me crazy in this modern look user interfaces.
I really don't
know what is what. Yeah.
I really liked Windows 7 better in terms of the best in terms of the look. But I think Microsoft probably has little control over well, they don't have as much control anymore because now everything on the web looks flat, and people have started doing the flat look probably I don't know, maybe it was before Microsoft, or maybe Microsoft introduced it with a lot of their gaming interfaces for Microsoft games. I'm not really sure how that got started.
Well, anyway, in few years it will be different again. So
it will be. But you also have to remember that back when you had in the early days of Windows, you really couldn't do a rounded corner with low resolution. It wouldn't look right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So when they started doing the rounded corners, when the resolution got better, and of course the 3D, you also couldn't easily do the highlighting and some of those things that you do now with the flat buttons. You couldn't do that in the early days of Windows. They didn't have the technology for it. You didn't have fast enough. You didn't have fast enough processing also to be able to change the color quickly.
Yeah. Just one more question. You mentioned that previously several times that you are thinking about using some other technologies, tool sets, or whatever for user interface in order to make it richer with better selection of widgets and so on. Is thinking still going on in that direction?
I'll let Amrit answer that, but we looked a little bit at, I mentioned UWP, but it would require rewriting all of Panther practically to do.
Yes.
So I think that is probably not a practical thing for us at this time. Get a lot more people to play Panther, maybe we'll be able to do it. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. That's absolutely right. Dragan, we're trying to, you're trying to try to get your customers moving to the web, and you already have quite a few of them on the web, but
yeah.
Well, the ActiveX Control, we've seen some great customer screens with tree view widgets in it. Very impressive. So that's an option. But as far as us, for as far as us investing months or years, to work deeper into creating these modern looking widgets. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I perfectly understand. After all, this whole graphical user interface layer was originally kind of grafted on good old Gem, so making yet another layer probably is not feasible. It will be just too much effort for too
It,
small number of customers. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, it was a big. We started working on the with Jam PI.
Yeah,
By
yeah,
the point something we started working on that in 1991, and there were a bunch of people involved. I didn't even get involved until the mid 90s in the Windows GUI work. So yeah, it was a lot of people over a lot of years to build the Windows interfaces with the SDK. And grafting it onto a lot of the work is, like you said, it's grafting it onto the core of Panther, the core code. We can't easily use something that we don't have a core concept for. So even something like a tree view widget, which you have in the common controls, you have to have a tree view at the core level in order to have a tree view in the Windows code. So you'd have to rewrite. You'd have to write all that code for both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just staying hopeful. Okay, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
You're welcome. Welcome. Well, thank you very
Drag.
much. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to the
Bye.
presenters. Yes. Have a good evening or day.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for watching our video. If you like the video, please press the like button. If you're viewing our content for the first time, please press the subscribe button. If you have any queries, either post them in the comment section or email us at support@prolifics.com.